The following podcast is a deep, shallow dive production.
And you're gonna love it.
Okay, let's go.
All right, I've had a lot of people on this podcast, and I've had a lot of real talk on this podcast. I really have. I think that's one of the things I pride myself on. But listen, everybody, today we are probably going to have one of the realest conversations that I've ever had here, and probably one of, if not the most meaningful conversation about something that, quite frankly, happened at the beginning of the year. And it's like everybody besides Spencer Pratt has forgot about it. And I just gave some people a clue, but Andi Wagner is somebody I met, gosh, probably maybe 45 days, maybe 2 months ago, something along those lines. And we started talking, and she shared that she had just moved to Laguna Beach. And I said, "Oh, that's cool. Where'd you move from?" And she said, "Pacific Palisades." And so immediately I was like, "Oh my God, was everything okay with your house?" This is, God, it's like, it's kind of making me emotional, let alone you, because it was such a traumatic thing. But listen, everybody, Andi's house burned down, and she was one of the folks that lost her house. And so we had an unbelievable conversation that night, and I kind of ended it with saying, "Hey, I know this is something that is incredibly difficult. Gosh, if you ever wanted to kind of talk about it on the podcast, because we talked about Deep Shallow Dive and we talked all about this stuff, it's an open invitation." And so we stayed in touch, and I reached out a couple times. We had a couple things scheduled, and, one thing came up, something else came up. And I honestly thought to myself, you know what? I'm just going to kind of let it be such a traumatic experience for her. I don't want to push her into anything. And last week she contacted me and said, "Hey, I've been attending these classes. I think it's the Hoffman classes. Is that right?" And I know you're going to share about that in this as well. But anyway, long story short, man, that was the longest intro ever, but I wanted it to be because it's so meaningful. We finally, are putting this together, and I appreciate this so much. And I'm going to shut up for a second. So welcome to Deep Shallow Dive.
I appreciate you for wanting to keep, I don't want to say the events alive, but I feel as though sometimes it gets forgotten, right?
No, absolutely. And like you and I talked the first time we met, and then in subsequent conversations, gosh, it's like there's a crisis du jour every week these days. But man, this was only 6 months ago, 7 months ago, and it captivated the global stage for a good 2 to 3 weeks. And then from there, it's like, poof, it's gone. And it should not be gone, because people lost everything, including yourself. All right, so let's start with, gosh, I think it was maybe January 7th, if I'm remembering the date right. Where were you when things started, and what was the beginnings of it for you?
So I'm going to back up to January 1st because there's a correlation between the 1st and the 7th, and a lot of people might not be aware of. But on New Year's Eve, there was a fire in the Highlands that was started by a couple of young kids and fireworks.
Hmm.
And the firefighters were called again to the Highlands, which is a part of the Palisades. It's probably about, I'd say, maybe 2.5 miles up from PCH off of Sunset Boulevard.
Okay.
And it's a development where you take a road called Palisades Drive for about 2 miles up into the Highlands. And this fire was put out on New Year's Eve. And I know this for a fact because one of my best friends lives right in the Highlands, and another friend actually lived where the fire was, right, literally in the front of her house. And it was put out. But as we both know, a fire can be, quote, put out, but underneath the embers are still burning. And unfortunately, when we knew that there were going to be high winds, because the weather report had told us this 3 days before the fire, that same fire was reignited. Now it's not official yet, but it'll come out very soon. we I'm going to speak from, we as Palisadians knew that there had been a fire. We knew that there were going to be high winds. And we also knew that our reservoir has not been filled.
Okay.
I didn't know that there wasn't enough water. And I didn't know, honestly, that even how many firefighters had been cut. I wasn't aware of that until afterward. So back to your initial question, on the 7th of January, I happened to go to the new gym that just opened up in the Palisades. It had been closed since COVID equinox, and I was in a class. And at 10 a.m., everyone's phone alarms went off because there was a
Wow.
fire. And the alarm went off in the gym as well. And we all sort of we didn't quite know what was going on. And everyone started looking on their phone, and then people started to leave because they have kids in school, and they saw that I don't know what it said on the phone. I didn't get I didn't even know if it was an evacuation notice, to be
Yeah.
quite honest. I don't think it was. I think it was just there's a fire in the Highlands. And we looked out of the window, and literally there was this giant plume of smoke because the Equinox gym is right there on PCH and Sunset Boulevard. So you
Okay.
literally
Okay.
see sort of, if you looked, it was coming rolling down from the Highlands.
Okay, gigantic thing of smoke. Okay, let me, for those that don't live in Southern California and that maybe don't even remember. So Pacific Palisades, just so everybody knows, is one of the nicest neighborhoods of Southern California, and probably what makes it so unique within Southern California, in my opinion, is it's kind of the quintessential, almost Midwestern neighborhood that is in Southern California. Most of California, especially Southern California, small lots, not a lot of yard. It's very like homes are on top of each other and all that. The Palisades, and then another neighborhood called Palos Verdes, which sometimes gets mistaken for it. And we'll talk about that a little later. Those two, they really remind me of like the nicest neighborhoods in Cleveland, Ohio, where I grew up, or in any city in the Midwest. So just understand that this is a very, very suburban, just a wonderful, wonderful neighborhood, and probably a neighborhood that you just never think anything is gonna go wrong. Like what you said earlier, you had no idea that the reservoirs didn't have water in it. You had no idea that your firefighter network had been cut and all that, because it's such a nice neighborhood. You just think everything's gonna be perfect. Okay. All right. So go on. So everybody's like rushing home. They're going to take care of their kids. Go from there.
I decided to get in my car and leave as well because I wanted to. Luckily, my son is 21 and he was actually backpacking in Peru. So I knew he was safe, but my dog is home. And of course, you want to get home and you want to save your animals. And I went out and it was a parking lot on Sunset Boulevard. To get into the Palisades was a parking
Wow.
lot at Sunset and PCA. And I was in that parking lot line and we weren't moving. And I thought to myself, there's no way I'm going to get home in time. And when I looked up, in fact, I took a photo with my phone, and it looked like my home was in the fire because there was so
Wow.
much smoke already. And this was again 10:15 in the morning, 10 a.m.
Okay. Wow. Okay.
So by the grace of God, I remembered a back route. A friend of mine had been a member at the Bel Air Bay Club, and the Bel Air Bay Club is located on PCH, and they also have another portion of their club above, and then they have a private road that goes from PCH up to their club. But that road also goes all the way into the Palisades and and then you can cross Sunset Boulevard and get to my house, which is considered the Marquez Knolls, which, if you know the Palisades, it's near Marquez Elementary and it's west of Temescal Canyon. A lot of people in LA come and hike at Will Rogers State Park and Temescal Canyon. Once I got to the neighborhood, it was just mass chaos. And this is 10:15 in the morning.
Yeah, yeah. What's interesting? Gosh, I really remember this pretty vividly, but I don't remember really hearing about it until later that night. So this is interesting that this started at 10:15 for you. I remember around 6 p.m. that night was when all of a sudden I saw all the postings on social media, and then it was all over the news.
So I made it to my street, and again, waiting because all the cars were coming. And I had a neighbor and I said, "Are you evacuating?" And she goes, "I've lived here for 40 years. The firefighters have it under control. We're not
Yeah,
leaving." And I
yeah.
thought, okay, interesting. And then I went to the front of my house, and my neighbors across the street and next to me were there. And I said, "Hey, everybody's panicking. Are you guys evacuating?" No, look, then you could see the helicopters were dropping water. You could hear the sirens. I wanted to believe that it was under control
Yeah,
and
of course.
wasn't going to roll down the hill. And I was confused. And I literally went inside my house thinking, okay, well, maybe there really isn't anything to panic about. And then I remember coming back outside, and again, it was my neighbor to the left and another neighbor in front. And I looked at them again. I said, "Are you guys sure you're not even going to pack up your car?" "No, and Andrea, we're fine. We're good. We're just going to wait." You know, it hasn't. We've been through this before.
Yeah,
What
yeah.
knows? We've been through this before, and we're fine. And I went back into the house again, and I was like, "Okay, I'm good."
And like, did the air just smell like smoke? Could you see fires, or was it just a big smoke bomb?
You couldn't see fires, you could see smoke, but you could hear the helicopters, you could see the copters dropping the water, you could hear the sirens. And again, as the Palisades have been through
Yeah,
fire, the
yeah, yeah,
Highlands have been through it more than us. The Highlands are the ones and they really only have one way in and one way out. That's
yeah,
what's really scary. It's similar to Mandeville Canyon, where there's one way in and one way out. Now there is a fire road, and they only open it if God forbid there's a fire, and then now there's two ways out, but that's it. And I don't know, there are a lot of people who live up in the Highlands, and everyone was trying to come down one road. I'm not even sure if you opened the fire road yet. So no, you had this sort of panic mode.
yeah.
You were kind of still in denial.
Absolutely. I can totally see that because, again, you're talking about such a nice neighborhood that you just don't think anything can go bad. This is real talk. This is like, think of Compton. Think of the stereotype of Compton and then think of the exact opposite. That's what the Palisades is. You just don't think anything could go this bad.
No. And we have people living there who've moved in the 1950s, that they've been
Wow.
in the same house. When I first moved to the Palisades, it was in 1997. And I'll never forget moving to our second home, and my neighbor was 100 years old. And I
Yeah.
thought, he's 100. He's probably going to, I don't know how much longer. He lived to 106.
Oh my goodness.
People
That's
who live in
amazing.
the Palisades live a really long, healthy life.
Yeah.
And you have the families that have been there because of their families. And you have the new families that have moved in. And then you have the small homes that were built in the 1950s. And then you also have the homes that have been built recently that are just ginormous mansions, right?
Yeah.
So you
Yeah.
have this mixture of different socioeconomic backgrounds. It's okay, Leah. It's not just the wealthy, which is what
Yeah.
that was my point. But yes,
Okay. Actually, that's a great point. That's a great point because I think when this was happening, it was kind of in two major areas of Southern California, Pacific Palisades and then Altadena. And then Altadena was kind of, I don't know. I mean, people were like, okay, that's the not so, affluent part of town. This is the affluent part of town. Okay. So at this point, it's getting to be like 12 noon. Are you packing up a car? Like, are you like, okay, I'm going to get out of here or I'm going to wait this out? Honestly, I probably would have waited it out.
Was going to wait it out. And then I don't know what you believe in, whether you want to call it God, creator, light, the source, Buddha, Allah, whatever you believe in. I got a message and I heard go now. And I thought,
Wow.
okay. So I actually had a suitcase that I had just come back from a trip, and I opened it up. I was kind of taking my time thinking, if I was going to go away for 7 days, what would I bring? And then all of a sudden I heard that voice, or go now. And immediately I panicked, and I knew that I had
Really?
to get out.
Yeah.
I knew that
Wow.
first thing I did was my dog. I was like, she needs food. She needs her bowls. She needs her bed. I thought about her. And then I was thinking, I've got to get my passport, the things that you think about that you're going to need,
Yeah, totally.
and paperwork, interestingly enough, I always kept my papers, my important papers in a basket. I never put them in a filing cabinet.
Mm,
Couldn't tell you why, but I thought, if God forbid there was if I had to get out of the house fast, I wouldn't have time to pull everything out of a filing cabinet. So I had just picked up the bins. I'd put them in my trunk, my two favorite leather jackets, some
yeah.
photos on my dresser. And I kind of panicked, and I literally took 3 boots, all left, the left boot.
Well, that's funny. Oh
If
my
that gives you an
gosh.
idea of where my
Yeah.
synapses were firing, I went into
Yeah.
panic mode, and I knew that this was serious and that I had to get out. I threw some sweaters, I threw a bikini top, not even the bottom. One
Yeah.
other bathing I don't even know why I packed a bathing suit, I couldn't tell you.
Yeah.
When you sort of go in panic mode, you're kind of not thinking about what to bring,
Yeah.
except the things that I knew. I didn't grab any extra cash. I did grab my purse, my laptop, and the dog, and I got in the car, and as I was packing the car, another friend drove by, and we looked at one another, and it was as if we were like, "Can you believe this is happening? Is this
Yeah.
real?" It felt surreal.
I
And
can
as I
imagine.
was pulling out, my neighbor looked at me and said, "Are you okay? Do you need anything?" And he was pulling out at the exact same time, and I said, "No, but stay in touch." And as I was going down my hill, 7 fire trucks were coming up to go to the fire road that I just told you was normally closed, and they were
Wow.
heading up to the Highlands, and that's when I knew it's bigger than I even expected. But as I was pulling out, there was a man running up the hill in a suit, sweating, and I looked at him, I go, "Do you need a ride?" And he said, "Yeah." And I said, "Where do you live?" And he said, "Up the road," which is up into where the fire is.
Oh my
He
gosh.
said, "Get in my car." And I drove him, and he said Maryville, and I drove him up to his house. And literally, I saw a huge plume of smoke, and I thought, "What am I doing?" In that
Yeah.
moment. And I dropped him off, and then I went down, and then the cars weren't moving. Literally, we were sort of in a standstill, and I
Yeah.
finally made it down to Sunset, which is another standstill. And then I knew that I couldn't go go to Sunset, and I remembered the back way again. But I couldn't, no one was letting me go through. It was
Yeah.
as if people were just, and I get it, everyone was just focused on getting
Yeah.
themselves out, and no one wanted to let anybody make a left-hand
So it
turn.
really was like a parking lot in terms of, and by this point, are we talking about like 1 o'clock, two
No,
o'clock?
this is probably, if I looked at my phone when I took that photo,
Yeah.
11:20 AM.
My gosh, wow, this is happening super fast. Okay,
Super fast.
holy mackerel! Because I remember later that evening, or maybe this was the next day, but there was a scene where PCH people had just left their cars, like, on PCH. I remember seeing bulldozers bulldozing through cars. I mean, that's just surreal. That's absolutely surreal. Okay, so you finally get out of that cluster jam. Where'd you go?
I went to Earth Cafe on Main Street in Santa Monica because the only friends that I have live in the Palisades.
Yeah, yeah,
They also had to evacuate, and
yeah.
I don't have any family, and I didn't know where to go. I thought, "Well, I'll just go sit at a restaurant until we can go back to our homes."
Yeah, okay, okay,
I had
okay.
no idea what was
I
going
mean,
on.
that makes sense because at this point, again, on the 7th, you're probably thinking it's 11:30 AM. You're probably thinking, "All right, this will be cleared up by 6 or 7 even. I'll be back later tonight." Okay, that is wild. Okay, so then obviously you didn't go home back home. Did you go back to your house at all? Was that the last time you saw your house? God, that's unbelievable.
And
Okay,
as
so
I
then
was Oh, go
where'd
ahead.
you go that no, no, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I remember as I was pulling onto PCH, it was empty. There was no one on PCH because everyone
Wow.
had already, everything was, all the cars were stuck in the Palisades. And then
Yeah.
there was a woman walking on the side of the road, and she was a housekeeper. And I opened my door and I said, "Do you need a ride?" And she said she had walked from the Highlands, which is a good two.
Gosh.
She'd already been at, like, literally down on PCH, probably a good 2.5 miles. And she said she abandoned her car.
Okay, okay. So
So
she was one
she had
of the
already
folks.
abandoned her car, and this is like 11:20 in the morning. So I
Wow,
said, "Where do you need to go?" She goes, "Could you please bring me to the gas station on Lincoln so I can call my husband to have him pick me up?" So I
wow.
drove her to the gas station on Lincoln, and then I went to the restaurant and sat there until an ex-boyfriend called, and he said, "You've gotta come to my place. What are you gonna do?" And I said, "I don't know." And this is I already been there for 5 hours, and he lives in Newport Beach. So that's how I wound up in Orange County. I went to
So
the ex
you left the alright, so on the 7th, at some point, you were just like, "Okay, I'm not gonna make it back home tonight. I'll just head down there and kinda wait it out." Okay, so then what was that night like? What was the next day like? Like, when did you find out or realize your house had burned down? And by the way, did it burn to the ground, like, gone? Everything's gone? That is so violent. That is just so I think I told you last time we talked, every time I talk to you, I look around my house and I'm like, can you imagine if this stuff was all burned to the ground? It's such a, oh God, the best word I can think of is violent. It's just such a violent feeling. So when did you find out your house was gone?
So the entire night we were watching the app. I don't remember what
Okay.
that app is, but it's like the fire watch where
Yeah.
you could literally see the homes and where the fire is, and you can clock it. And my ex and I were just glued to my cell phone watching and listening to the news. The news was on. And then after a while, I couldn't, I said, you got to turn the news off or I'm literally going to have a nervous breakdown.
Yeah. Yeah.
I couldn't hear it. I couldn't watch it. It was too much. And my neighbor were still there. Like my neighbor literally was on his house with a hose till 7:30 at night,
My goodness.
trying to save his house 2 doors down from me,
Wow.
and literally putting water on my yard. And
That's
my
amazing.
I didn't know this until later, but he was literally trying to save my house.
So what happened with his place? Did he end up saving it or did he end up bailing?
He bailed and
Man,
it burned down.
wow. Okay,
The neighbor to the right of me, his home is still standing.
no way. The neighbor directly to the right of you, still standing and no real damage as if he's living and he's back in there?
He's not, but the neighbor across the street, her house burned down. She's renting it from him, and she and her husband and son are living in it right now.
Oh my
And
gosh,
the
that's
people
so
across the
interesting.
street from me are back in their home as well.
Okay, okay. So let me ask you this so people can visualize this. Your street and your neighborhood, like, are we talking 20 houses, 50 houses? How many houses are like on your street?
There were probably about, I'd say 35,
Okay,
40.
okay. And then you're, well, I guess the block and the neighborhood, we're talking hundreds of homes,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
And so do you know roughly how many homes survived? Are we talking 5 homes that survived or maybe a little bit more, but
I can only tell you my street.
okay, yeah, your street.
And let's say there were 40, five homes are still standing.
5 out of 45. Okay. Gosh, I gotta be honest, that's a weird feeling for those people, you know what I mean? And again, we're gonna talk about insurance and we're gonna talk about, what's happened since and the response of the city and the governor and all that in a minute. Part of me thinks, are they better off having their home survived or are they worse off? Because that whole area, I have to imagine, is such a, oh my God, I don't even know if I'd wanna come back to that every day. Even if my home is still standing, it's like it's such a barren place. Okay,
It's
all right, let
it.
me stay focused. So the next several days are a little bit touch and go, and then you finally, through the app, you sort of see it seems as if your house is affected, but you don't really have a visual confirmation, right?
Well, I do. The next day, my neighbor he took a moped into the Palisades and sent me a video of my home, which is burned to the ground. So I knew
Oh
the
my
next day.
God. Did he, like, prepare you for that? Like, did he call
He
you
did.
or
He said,
okay,
"Listen, I'm gonna
okay.
send you, your house is gone."
That's
He goes, "I have video." And I said, "Send it." Yeah.
okay. Do you remember how you felt? Like, what was I don't even know if you remember because
You know
that's
what it is?
gotta be
Honestly, it's similar to when someone dies,
yeah,
you go through the 7 stages of grief, right? And the first is shock. Shock and denial. You're just in
yeah,
shock.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
It happens so fast. One minute you're
yeah,
there, the next minute everything's gone. Not just your home, your entire community.
yeah,
There are
yeah,
people who've lived there since the 50s. I moved in 1997. I mean,
yeah,
and that was the house that I raised my son in, so I'd been in that house for almost 19 years. There's
yeah,
some people who've lived in their home for 50 years.
yeah, yeah,
And there were people who
absolutely.
couldn't get back to save their pets. There were people who had to abandon their cars. Every single person has a different story.
Yeah,
You get
yeah,
10 people all from the Palisades, and every single one of those people will tell you something different. We
yeah,
all have a different story. We all have a different experience. By the grace of God, I got out where a neighbor didn't, and it took her 3 hours to do the same route that I did, 3 miles. What took me 15 minutes took her 3 hours.
wow.
That's what blows my mind too.
Yeah. So all of the people that abandoned their cars, I'm assuming that was maybe later in the day or gosh, maybe even the next day, because the whole process of the fires being really bad, I remember, I mean, that was a 3 or 4 day process, right? Do you remember?
When you what do you mean when you say it just
I mean, like I remember not thinking it was over for a few days. Like it seemed like there were still like, was it a Tuesday night? Do you remember the exact day? Okay,
no, I don't remember.
let's say it was a Tuesday. I remember 3 or 4 days where like it just felt like it just kept going and burning, and like you didn't know if it was gonna make its way down to Santa Monica, which is the next neighborhood, and all
There were no
that.
fire trucks. The fire trucks
Yeah.
had stopped coming.
Wow. Okay. All
There
right.
were
Let's
there was
talk.
there were bur there was burnt it was burning, like, there were people went to save Lake Shrine, which is a huge,
Mm,
public place where people would go to this particular lake. Paramahansa Yogananda brought it here. He brought and created this beautiful shrine, and literally residents went to save that particular area for 3 days themselves because there were no firefighters. There was no water. I don't know where the water came from. I think they took it from the lake.
that's amazing. That's amazing. All right. So you were down in Newport Beach, which is a good maybe 60 miles away from the Palisades. When did you finally go back?
Let us go back.
Yeah, to even okay, so was it weeks before you even saw, the remains of your home?
Yeah, we weren't allowed to go back because it was still on there were still fires,
Okay, okay.
right? It was unsafe, that there were wires that had fallen from the telephone poles. It was just honest to God, it looked like a bomb had gone off.
Okay, yeah, Jesus Christ, that's
I
crazy.
have more compassion for what the Ukrainians went through, what 9/11. I mean, it
Yeah,
looked as though it was I still can't even express to you driving
yeah,
through it afterwards, I felt like I was on a movie set of Armageddon or
yeah,
Terminator.
I
It
can
it just didn't
imagine.
seem real.
Yeah, no, some of the footage and some of the drone footage that was shot and released. I mean, it just look. I mean, Armageddon. That's a great analogy. It just looked annihilated, absolutely annihilated for block after block after block after block. And you're right. You would see one house here and there, and then I remember there was like a blue Volkswagen,
VW.
a VW van or something. That was interesting. We don't have to get into this, but there's a lot of like talk about how the color blue doesn't burn or something. And even in the Maui fires, there were a couple homes that had blue roofs and those didn't burn. We don't need to get into the theories behind that, but okay. All right. So my God. So not fast forward, but so you finally got back, you finally kind of saw the remains of everything. I mean, what did that feel like? Just empty?
Again, I was still in shock.
Yeah, yeah,
I
you're
have a
so
video,
right.
literally, I took video of myself walking through my gate
Yeah,
for the first time. So because my neighbor tried to save my house, I had a white picket fence, quintessential white picket fence with a gate and an arbor, perfect, pristine condition,
no way. The white picket fence was still up? Oh my
pristine.
gosh.
You wouldn't have known that anything had happened from the outside. Tall ficus trees, green as ever. So it was really surreal to then walk through and see my trees charred and black, and the one
Yeah,
incredibly big pepper tree, just a stump. It was like the giving tree. You know that
yeah,
story from when you're a kid?
yeah, yeah.
Beautiful tree is now just a stump, and literally the only thing standing was my fireplace, my brick
Wow.
brick fireplace, chimney, and everything else was gone.
And at this point, can you like walk through the yard and stuff? Like, were there any remnants of anything? Like something amazing that didn't burn? Like, I don't know, half of a photo album or anything along those lines?
Nothing, and the only thing that I used to collect dragonflies and a lot of metal ones, and those are the only things that survived, were about
Really?
6 dragonflies. All my Buddha, I had Buddha, cement, lawn Buddhas, they survived. That's about it. Anything else
Okay.
was gone.
Okay. Wow. Okay. Oh my God, that's just surreal. And you're right. It's probably still shock. You know what I mean? Like I have to imagine part of you still even doesn't really believe that it happened. That's so crazy. But I'm so glad we're talking about it because people need to realize this happened and this happened this year. And I'm sure everybody, like you said, has their own story and they probably have their own journey that they've been taking with this. Some probably terrible. I hope yours hasn't been too bad. Do you mind talking a little bit maybe about like your insurance or like the people you have to deal with? And maybe we can even start with like the city and, Governor Newsom and all that. Where have they been in all this? Have they been good? Have they been bad? What's that been like?
Once I left,
Hmm.
I didn't want to be I literally turned off the news.
Okay. Okay.
I couldn't
Okay.
listen to anything
Yeah.
because there was so much vitriol against Karen Bass. There was vitriol against Newsom. You're going to have the
Yeah.
two
Yeah.
sides, right? You're
Sure.
gonna have
Sure.
that everyone was angry. Of course, we have every right to be angry. We've paid these incredible taxes
Yeah.
and to watch our city burn to the ground, not just our homes, but our entire city, except for a shopping center, which
Yeah.
was saved because there was a personal fire company that was
Yeah, I
hired.
think I think that was Rick Caruso's shopping center, who's the developer who lost in the mayoral race to Karen Bass. He hired his own. Yeah, that's pretty wild. That's pretty wild. It's also pretty wild that I mean, I guess he had the foresight to hire his own personal fire crew, but man, that's pretty crazy. That's pretty crazy. Did it the things that came out in the news, and I know you're saying you weren't totally on top of it, but it did seem to come out that the reservoir that should have fed the water, I don't know if it was completely empty or it was depleted. The fire hydrants weren't working. Like, this is insane that this was the case in Pacific Palisades because, like I said, this is literally one of the nicest, most pristine neighborhoods in all of Southern California. And that's saying a lot because there's so many nice neighborhoods. That is crazy that stuff was not kept up the way it should be. And you guys didn't know. It's not like anyone living there would have expected that. You would have actually probably expected the exact opposite, that they were overflowing with water and all that. That's crazy.
So
Okay.
that I, like my neighbors, had thought it's going to be contained.
Yeah,
Just
yeah,
had
yeah,
been in January 1st.
yeah, yeah,
January
totally.
1st, somebody shot off a firework. The firefighters came, they put it out.
Yeah,
But the strong winds were, I mean, and I've spoken to a couple of firefighters and they're like, look, Andrea, no matter how many firefighters you have, if you've got these winds,
yeah, 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 yeah.
Mother Nature did play
A big role. Yeah, that's fair. The question is, even if there was all the water filled up, even if the hydrants were working, even if the firefighting crews had not been cut as dramatically as they did, would it have mattered? Would it have mattered? Would they have been able to do something? Who the heck knows? What about, oh my gosh. Did it bring you and your neighbors closer together, or did it bring you guys or nothing? Like in my mind, I'm like, okay, man, this might bring people closer together, or it might just push everybody away from each other, or maybe there's no effect. Was there any effect along those lines?
it's a good question. I think both. I think for the first 3, 4 months, nobody really talked to anyone. I couldn't speak to anyone. I couldn't even speak to my friends because everyone had too many questions and
Yeah, yeah,
I
yeah,
couldn't answer.
yeah,
I didn't want to talk about it. It
yeah,
was too traumatic. I was still dealing with the shock. Someone had said to me, it's similar when you have chemotherapy, when you go through cancer, you have chemo brain and you literally can't even string a sentence together. Can't, your synapses are firing and they're not
yeah,
connected because you've gone through something so traumatic and traumatizing that you don't even know how to wrap your head around it. So I think a lot of us just went inward and
mm,
then now there's this Pally Strong. We're going to bring the town back. A lot of people are talking about rebuilding and getting permits, and so there's a new group and a new energy that's happening for
okay,
those that are choosing to rebuild. And
okay,
So there's now a lot of lawsuits. You asked about the insurance. Luckily, by the grace of God, I had insurance. Of course, I was underinsured, but thank God I had insurance. I had
Yeah.
also not the best, but not the worst from what
Okay. Okay.
I've heard a lot of people whose home did not burn down. They unfortunately have gone through even more trauma. And I
Yeah.
have the you're the lucky one, which sounds crazy to think, oh, I'm lucky because I lost everything and my house burned down. But in some ways, some people truly feel that it would have been easier to just, it was a total loss.
Okay. Yeah. No, no, totally. And I know there was a big insurance situation where maybe the summer before some of the insurance carriers stepped out of California. So those people lost their fire insurance. And then here's the thing. I mean, gosh, everything is so expensive in Southern California to begin with, insurance included. And then when fire insurance is a completely separate policy, I mean, I could understand people not renewing their fire insurance or even having it. Like, I can totally understand that. Oh man, what a nightmare for some of those people. What a nightmare. Are you planning on going back at all, or do you still own the land, right? Like the lot and all that?
I'm still paying the mortgage.
Yeah.
I'm still paying property taxes.
Really? They're still making you guys pay property taxes?
Supposedly they're going to lower the property taxes, but I don't know by how much, but it isn't much. And
That's
my mortgage
insane.
company doesn't care whether my house is still standing. I took out a loan and that's my responsibility to pay off that loan. I did request forbearance, which
Okay.
means I can, every 3 months I could not have to pay my mortgage, which has been really helpful.
Okay.
So I
Okay.
did choose that.
So every 3 months you get 1 month where you don't have to pay, or what do you mean by that?
I can say in 3 months they'll come and say, can you pay your loan? And I can either say yes or no.
Wow,
They
okay,
said
okay,
no.
got it.
I'm hoping they'll tack it on the back end of my loan.
Got it. Okay, okay, got it. Yeah, I'm
And to
sure
be
they'll
honest,
tack it on.
I don't, I'm still not in a place to make a decision,
I can
right?
imagine. I can imagine. I can imagine it's such a hard thing to wrap your mind around. Let me ask you this, have you been approached by any LLCs or any companies that wanna buy the property from you? Because there is some stories out there. Again, it's so hard to decipher what's real and what's not these days, but there is some stories about, so and so LLC going into neighborhoods and trying to basically trying to buy the land from people. I don't want to say for pennies on the dollar, but obviously make them a deal to maybe get them out of their mortgage and then, add a couple percentage points so they make a little bit of money. Have you been approached by anybody along those lines? Okay. Okay.
No, and I do have a couple of friends who are realtors, and what they've told me is, ironically, a lot of the homes that are their lots that are being sold, wealthy families in the Palisades are buying them for their families, or they've now decided they want a double lot.
Wow. Okay. Wow. Okay.
Nice problem to have.
Yeah. What about cleanup for your lot and your home? Was that your responsibility to clean everything up? And has it been cleaned up, or what's it look like now?
You did have a choice to go with the government and let the government clean up, and then they will take the money from your insurance company, or you had the option to hire your own private
Okay.
company. I think 20% of the residents went with their own company. I chose to go with the government.
Okay. Okay. So have they cleaned it up? Like, have you been back recently?
I have. I heard there's only one home left. Everything, and they did it in remarkable amount of time.
Wow.
Could
Okay.
have taken a year and a half. They did in 6 months.
Wow. Okay. 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 That's interesting. So right now your place is just kind of like flat dirt.
That was
Okay.
really hard. I'm not gonna lie. I waited. Like, they kept calling me and said, "You're in the queue. You're in the queue to
Hmm.
have your lot cleared." And I'm gonna cry. I wasn't ready.
Yeah.
I think it was like once they cleared it, that's when you really felt like it was really
Yeah.
gone.
Yeah. Totally. Totally. My God, you said it earlier. It's really like losing somebody dying, and then like when the casket gets put on in the ground, that's when oh my God, it's a lot. It's a lot. It's so much. Oh, all right.
And then you have people saying, "Oh, it was only stuff, you can replace everything."
Yeah, I hate when people say that. It's like I remember seeing a video of JJ Redick. He's the head coach of the Los Angeles Lakers. And again, obviously a guy with a lot of money. He's the head coach of the Lakers, so I'm sure there's no shortage of resources to help him and his family out and all that. And he was talking about it, and there were people like in the comments section saying, "Oh, who cares? He's got money." That is such a lack of humanity and empathy for anyone to say that. It's not the financial loss, it's the emotional loss. Like, imagine your bed is gone, your pillow is gone, your couch is gone, let alone all the stuff you can't replace, like the photo albums, the handwritten cards, the this, the that, the little necklace you bought in Istanbul 6 years ago that for 10 cents, but it was so meaningful to you. Like all of that stuff, that's the meaningful stuff. So anybody that basically tries to say just because a family or a person is wealthy and they can replace it, it's just stuff. My answer is, yeah, what if it was your stuff, you'd feel a lot different. My God.
And, I go between everything happens for a reason. There's a reason it happened, or it's to teach us to be not attached to things, right? Someone said to me, "Andy, you'll never see a U-Haul behind a hearse." And I thought,
Yeah, it's still so hard, man. I mean, listen, I remember the day I met you, actually, the night we met. I kind of was like, man, she's got a great approach to this, and I appreciated your mentality then. I appreciate what you just said, but that's hard, man. It's hard to think about that and be like, oh, maybe it was meant for some. That's really hard. That really is. Like I applaud you for taking that approach or trying to internalize it like that, but my gosh, it also you deserve to really grieve, like truly grieve. Like I remember when my dad passed away, like I grieved like crazy. And that lasted a good year for me. I mean, I really grieved for a year. And now whenever somebody loses a parent or loses somebody, I mean, my best advice is let yourself grieve. And so for you, I mean, I think you have let yourself grieve, which is good, and you do have a positive perspective about it. Okay, let me ask you, is there anything else you want to tell us about that? Because I do want to kind of like talk about your moving on, because I know you kind of are, and there's something in particular you're doing that is helping you move on. And I do want you to talk about that a little, although I want to do a whole separate episode about it. But is there anything else you want to share about just that experience? Oh,
it's different for everyone, but for me, I went dark. I'm not going to
yeah,
lie.
yeah,
I
yeah.
couldn't see the forest between the trees. I thought, everything's gone. What's like, and then I was reminded, your son was away, thank God.
Yeah,
You got home and got your dog, and you're
yeah,
safe. So I'm grateful, right? I could sit in gratitude and say, thank
yeah,
God that I was able to get home, right? And there are some people who didn't even make it back home. They were
yeah,
on vacation or they were at work and they couldn't get back into the
yeah,
Palisade.
yeah,
And
yeah,
and there's no trauma competition at all because I'm still going to feel what I'm going to feel. But at the same time, if I find myself spiraling, I'm going to try to bring it back to gratitude and know that I do have a choice,
yeah,
right? In
yeah,
fact, I just
yeah,
read this incredible book called The Choice. It's a Holocaust survivor, and she came out with her story after she read Viktor Frankl's Man's Search for Meaning. And as horrific and horrible as their experience was, as my experience is, we have a choice. And we could live in a victim mode and we could say, oh my gosh, I have nothing and everything was taken and poor me and I'm going to live in this. And I could do that. Or I have to say, all right, I got to brush myself off. This happened. I've got to rise above it. Now what? Right? How can I help others? I've become so much more compassionate, number one.
I could imagine. Yeah, yeah,
I mean, even you, when you lose a parent and someone says, I just lost my dad, you now can feel even more for this person because you too lost your father, right?
absolutely,
I
absolutely.
can
Yeah,
meet somebody and go, "Oh my god, you just lost your house in a flood. I get it. I feel you more. I am
yeah,
so much more compassionate."
yeah. Oh, it's a lot, man. It's a lot. All right, let's talk for a minute. I feel like, well, let's see. What are we? February, March, April. We're 6 months out, 7 months out. It seems like you found something, and I do want you to tell us a little bit about Hoffman that is helping you. So talk us through that.
So there's something called the Hoffman process that I had heard about because the ex-boyfriend who actually,
Yeah,
I say he rescued me from the fire, he actually
yeah.
really did.
By the way, I have to ask this question because I know everybody's dying to know this answer. Did you and the ex-boyfriend get back together? Did you get back together over this?
No,
Okay, no? Okay, all right,
but
man.
he will forever be one of the most important people in my life. I mean,
Okay, that's amazing.
there's something to be said about loving your exes because at one point you loved this person. You really did, right?
You're totally right, absolutely,
I
and
mean,
I
with my ex-husband, I had a child with my ex-husband. Uh,
yeah,
so thank God I'm still
yeah,
friends with my exes. And
yeah,
but I am so grateful to him for a myriad of reasons because he was the one who even said go to I had nowhere to go. I had to
yeah,
live in a hotel. I didn't want to stay with him. Again,
yeah,
I love him to death, but after 5 days, there's a reason you don't want to be with your ex anymore.
yeah,
And I went to live in a hotel, which happened to be in Laguna Beach, which is where I'm like, I'm staying here now. I don't want to move
yeah,
again. It's just too traumatic. I don't own a fork. I mean, thank God I found a condo that literally was furnished and had
yeah,
everything
yeah.
because it's starting over. You literally, I didn't have anything, right?
I
I didn't
mean,
have,
you just said something that I wanna repeat because I just want people to understand. You said, "I don't own a fork." Like, that's insane. I mean, you're right, because everything was in your house and it's gone, but again, I just want people to understand that, like you go from having everything you want in your life to literally not having a fork. Okay, all right,
and there
so you didn't get
freeing,
back together with the ex. Say that
okay,
again?
I said there is something also freeing that is,
That's a good point as well. That's a good point as well. There definitely is something freeing and something liberating and almost like, okay, well, what do I want to do today or where do I want to go or what I want to do? That's a very good point. That's a very good point. All right, so you did not get back together with the ex. I had to ask that. I'm sure people wanted to know that. All right, tell us about Hoffman.
so back to the ex. He had
Yeah.
done Hoffman.
Man, this
I
ex.
know the ex is named Roberto. He had done Hoffman of a year before I had met him, and I had heard about Hoffman, but I didn't quite know what it was. But for the past 10 years, I've been on my own healing journey, breath work, working with a life coach, therapy since I was 30, dealing with the trauma that I had as a child, the baggage that I had from my childhood, ayahuasca, psilocybin, you name it, reading the books, the self-help books, reading every book that Oprah had on her book club. So
Wow.
I've been on the healing journey and the transformation and how can I be a better version of myself? I'm a seeker. I'm curious. I want to learn. And he knows this about me. And he said, Andy, Oprah just did a podcast on the Hoffman process. You've got to listen to it. And I think you'd be an amazing Hoffman teacher. And I looked at him and I thought, okay. And in that moment, it kind of gave me hope because not only did I lose my house, I lost my community, I also lost my purpose. I was teaching a mindful and meditation class to third graders at the school that my son went to, and the half the school burned down.
Wow. Okay.
Lost my job, my
Yeah.
purpose. And I'm floating going, what am I going to do? Where am I going to work? What's next? What career? I'm sort of I don't have a house. My son is at college. He can't even stay with me because his internship is in Santa Monica and I'm too far away. And all these things are, and like I said, I couldn't see the forest between the trees. And I was really in a dark place. And my ex knew this. And I think he wanted to give me hope. And like he said, Andy, this would be your way of serving and giving back and using what you just went through, the trauma that you've just experienced, the trauma from your childhood, all the work you've done on yourself. You're teaching. I used to teach third grade. I have a teaching degree. My background's in psychology. So I watched the Oprah episode and I learned more about the Hoffman process. And I thought, wow, this is actually interesting. And I went online and it's a 2-year program. And one of the
Wow.
caveats is you have to take the week-long process. You go and immerse yourself and do the Hoffman process. And it's a 7-day process.
Okay.
And I thought, all right, I signed up and it was already booked. And, Oprah mentions anything, it turns to gold. So
Yeah.
already people are wanting to know, what is this Hoffman process? And I think Orlando Bloom was one of the guests, and he talked about it. And they had an opening in February. And I signed up for February. And then my ex said, no, you got to get in sooner. Go on the wait list. I went on the wait list, and it happened to be, we have an opening next week. And I thought, oh, do I really want to dig up not only my childhood, but now I'm going to dig up the trauma from what I just went through?
Yeah. And wait, this is February of this year? So, like, this
No,
was maybe
February of next year, I was supposed to go.
February of next year. Got it, got it, got
And
it, okay.
I thought, okay, by next February, I'll feel better.
Got it, okay, yeah, yeah,
I'll have
okay.
worked through the trauma from the fire. And then it was, no, we have an opening next week. And I thought, ooh, I'm going to now open the can of worms of my childhood again.
Yeah,
And now I'm also going to feel the pain of losing my house. And also, I realized losing my house also triggered a lot of my childhood abandonment of what I went through as a child. You know, my grandparents raised me. I was taken from school every year. I was a snowbird at 5. They were already retired. They like to live in Pennsylvania. They like to live in Florida. I was pulled out of school. I never had a home base. So on top of me never having a home base, for me to lose my home base of 18 years, it just brought up a lot of stuff from my childhood.
yeah, I feel
Long
you.
story short, I went for the week process, and it was amazing because it
Oh, that's
allowed
great.
me to get out a lot of anger from not just my childhood, but anger from how I felt losing my home, my community, my friends, everything that was taken from me so quickly. I was sad and depressed, but I wasn't allowing myself to express anger.
Got
It's
it.
interesting. Someone said, men, maybe it was you we were talking about, men can express their anger, and they don't cry. We as women will cry, but we're not going to express our anger.
Hmm.
And I
That
learned that
definitely was not me because I cry a lot.
that's so good.
I love that I just admitted that. Hey,
It's
that's true.
healthy. It's
That's
healthy.
true. It is. I'll tell you, after I cry, I feel so much better. Oh my God, I really do. I really feel so much better. Okay, so you did the Hoffman, you did it for a week, and now you are going to be a teacher of that?
I don't know. They say don't make any decisions for 60 days after you
Okay.
come back. Don't
So that's
sell your
funny.
home. Don't get divorced. Don't change jobs. Just let everything sort of settle. You open Pandora's box again, integrate with what you learned, the tools, you expressed yourself, you released a lot. So, yeah, I'm going to wait before I make any
Okay.
decisions. But if I
Okay.
were to, yes, it would be a beautiful second chapter of my life, and to take what I went through, my trauma, and to help others and serve. And listen, when we heal, others heal. And when others heal, we heal. And
Yes.
it would be sort of a beautiful way for me to serve and give back
That's
if that's
amazing.
my calling.
Okay. Okay. All right. All right. And so, okay, that's but it's helped you, right? Like it's really helped you?
Probably, it's funny how you opened your interview, your introduction, when we had said I'm willing to talk to you about the fire. I don't think I was ready.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I probably could not have had this conversation without crying the whole way through.
Got it. Yeah,
God's
totally.
honest truth.
I believe it, and that was only 30, 40 days ago, so, like, okay, so it definitely has helped you. Well, that's amazing, that's amazing. Well, let's do this. Once you take your little cool down period with Hoffman and decide what you wanna do with it, depending on whatever you decide, actually, I think it'd be really cool to have you come back on and kinda talk us through that, and really where you're taking that and what you decided to do with that, and then also if there's any updates on, I do keep an eye on what's going on in both Palisades and Altadena. And there's some interesting moving parts. There's some interesting moving parts. All of the sudden permits are being given out 50% residential, 50% commercial. All these real estate developers are moving in to build like high rises. A lot of that's in Altadena, but lately I've heard about it in the Palisades as well. There was actually, I think I sent this to you. There was a foreign investor who came in with like 60 to 75 million and bought up a lot of the lots in the Palisades. So there's some tomfoolery going on with all this stuff. So I'll keep an eye on all that. But anyway, listen, I just wanted to honestly, I really appreciate you. First of all, I'm so glad you're in a place that you can talk about this. And I know I speak for everyone in saying you really have helped us appreciate what we have and not going through something like you did. I just give you so much credit. It's a lot. It's like no matter how much anyone tries to find the silver lining, and I know there are some, and I know you've really, really decided to take that approach. It's a lot. And it's like anybody that tries to minimize it, I'm like, wait, I hope it doesn't happen to you, but until you walk in those shoes and until that happens to you, you can't give people advice, like I would never give you advice on what to do because I don't have that experience and I'm not arrogant enough to think I do. So,
But Ray, on advice, I would like to share two things.
okay.
One, right now, today, take video and photos of your house, room by room, drawer by drawer, just so you have it on your computer.
Well, that's
I wish
amazing
someone
advice.
told me that. And some people were smart. As they were running out, they took video, and I didn't do that. And also, if you ever have to evacuate, whether it's a tornado, a tsunami, a fire, take things like you're never going back.
Yeah. Okay.
That's my
That's
advice.
amazing advice.
Anyone
Yeah.
and everyone, take things like you're not going back. Don't be in that place of, oh, it's where I'm going to go back. Don't do that. And also, if you want more information on the Hoffman Institute, it's hoffmaninstitute.org.
All
That's
right.
all I want.
I will put, I know,
Things I've
absolutely. I'll
learned
put that
from my
link.
mistakes.
Absolutely. I'll put that link in the show notes. All right, everybody. I think I set this episode up properly because this was super meaningful. Andi, thank you so much. Love right back to you. I really appreciate it. Honestly, hang on the line. All right, everybody, call a spade, call your parents, appreciate what you have. And your advice was amazing. Take video and photos of your entire house, room by room, and actually make sure you know where all your important stuff are. Catalog all your important stuff. Make sure you know where the passport is, where this is, where that is. Keep that stuff. Don't wait until something tragic happens. Get ahead of that. All right, hang on the line. All right, everybody, we'll talk to you soon.
This episode was brought to you by Zippix nicotine toothpicks. Zip more, smoke less. Totally satisfying, discreet, and delicious. Zippix nicotine-infused toothpicks are available in 6 great flavors, each containing at least 2 milligrams of nicotine to curb those cravings. Zippix is FDA registered and proudly made in the USA. Use discount code DSD for 10% off your order at zippixtoothpicks.com. Zip more, smoke less, save 10%.